George Russell claimed to be saying it won't change the world for Mercedes, but there is some big rumours that they will go away from a zero side pod standard, which they've run for the last season and a bit. Wajid, can you see these updates really making a difference to Mercedes? Could we see them quickly bulk up the field? And I'm not saying sort of win the race, because obviously we've got to understand what we've got under them and we don't have testing. But if they go the right way, could we see them sort of challenging Aston Martin and maybe slipping into that second team role?
I mean, they should, because all anyone has heard is this update was supposed to, like, the Mercs were supposed to only struggle the first 4 races. Once the update comes in, it won't be a race winner, but it'll be a better car, etc., etc. So I'm expecting to at least be second place, given how they've spoken about the update. So if anything less than that, given how they've hyped it, how they've spoken about it, it's a failure. I know they're trying to downplay it now, but how many times have we heard Toto or James Allison or even Lewis and George saying, well, this isn't our final concept of our car. The cars, the sort of B-spec version of the cars where we're hoping to push forward and things like that. The fans haven't been saying that. That's all been noise from the team. So don't start downplaying stuff now.
Yeah. I mean, they're saying don't expect huge changes in terms of the actual sort of look of the car and things like that. But we've seen from Aston Martin, they have a similar kind of concept, but then they still have sort of the outskirting of the side pod there. So they have the side pod as Aston Martin would, Red Bull would, but then they have a sloping sort of no side pod effect inside of that. Do you think that's sort of like the aesthetics Mercedes could go for if they want to change their current concept without radically changing it?
But as I'm gonna unfortunately answer your question with a question. The zero side pod concept clearly hasn't worked. Lewis is on record and saying that he was ignored by the engineers. Do you not think if the zero side pod concept is not working, that they have to go to the Aston concept, a concept which does work?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly look at it as a situation that I don't think they can take their car and plonk Red Bull side pod on it, for example. I don't think, like Mercedes said, if they do that, the car could go slower because of the way the air travels to the floor. I think following something like Aston Martin have done, where they've got sort of the aesthetics on the outside, but then if you watch from above, the side pod falls away like Mercedes does. That kind of thing might just work in terms of flowing the air in the right direction. But with these sort of, I say radical, these airflow charged floors, it's not the easiest thing to kind of change without literally changing the whole format of the car. So I just wonder if we're going to see over the next few races a B-spec car like we've seen from McLaren before, and where it's completely radical, but compared to their, it looks completely different to their current concept, but follows the kind of line, they in testing last year, they had a normal side pod, didn't they? And I just wonder if they're going to go back to that concept, literally pull it out with the spares and go, well, we know it's kind of the same, so let's stick something like that to the concept and see whether that helps. Because Mercedes looked not too bad in testing at the start of last year with that concept, and then went zero.
But that car was the quickest car in Bahrain when first tested.
Yeah.
Like, it was only, obviously the Red Bulls hadn't brought the magic update, which accidentally fixed the issues of the car, that because they said when they were running the test they didn't expect the upgrades to fix what they did. But that that side pod car that the Mercs brought to the initial testing, it was the quickest car. It was the irony, is that the car they weren't working on was the quickest car at the time.
Yeah.
And people were running sort of this wasn't the atypical testing where people are holding back and things because of the new ground effect cars. People were testing last year. People were testing those cars to their full limit, and so that's why everyone was so, the rest of the grid was so fearful when the zero side pod concept came in, and the rest of everyone else was going, oh my god, we're in for another period of Merc dominance.
Yeah.
Because the Mercs were dominating, not dominating, but the Mercs were pretty far ahead in the for practice.
Well, I suppose you go with that Drive to Survive clip with George Russell walking up to it going, it looked really fast. And now that's a bit of a meme because it was so terrible in the end.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Toto Wolff has been said, even though we're bringing new suspension parts, new bodywork and things like that, he's never in 15 years of Formula One seen a silver bullet being introduced where suddenly you unlock half a second of performance. Obviously, you never saw the Ferrari the F2003 GA, I think it was, back in 2003, where Ferrari started the season with a car which was quick, it was decent. Then in Imola, turned up with a 2003 GA, and bye. It was literally bye. It might have been the was it F?
Wasn't the F2004?
Was it the 2004 GA? I know it was GA because it was named after.
I think it was the 2004 because the wasn't the 2003 season the one where the Mercs were the McLarens were the quickest car but could not keep the car in one piece on the grid.
The GA was 2003.
Oh, I know, you're right. My apologies.
So yeah, they brought it in. I remember them bringing it in. Oh, it was Spain they brought it in. I remember Imola being one of the races. So they brought a part update to Imola, and then in Spain they brought it in, and it won the first 3 of the first 4 races, only missing out in Monaco, and that was the year where Juan Pablo Montoya took victory for Williams, and Michael was down in 3rd. So, yeah.
Your reaction when you read Juan Pablo.
Yeah, I completely forgot he'd won in Monaco. Rubens didn't have much success with it straight off.
Rubens was a number 2 driver though.
He was, but then if you go back to say 2002, and I know that was such a dominant car, but he could pedal it when he had his day. He was a bit like David Coulthard. When he had his day, he was on it and could beat anybody.
Yeah, but this is why Ferrari kept him at Ferrari, because they knew that he was never going to challenge Michael. They didn't want. I think Ferrari thought with Barrichello they were never going to get what that one random season Irvine gave them, where Irvine had the season where he put it together. Granted, Michael broke his leg and things like that.
Yeah.
But Rubens came into Ferrari. He never looked close.
I would say with Rubens, he was when he first started, obviously wasn't anywhere near, but there was a period where if Michael had to retire, you could have relied on Rubens to bring that championship home. And that's the difference. That's the difference between Irvine and Barrichello. Irvine, you probably couldn't trust him. I know he had half a chance in '99, but it wasn't a mega thing. But the weird thing is, I'll speak about the 2003 GA, and that actually ended up being less successful than the 2002 car, the F2002, because he only won the title by 2 points over Kimi Räikkönen. But it's just the way that car came in and just hit the ground running that Mercedes are really going to have to look for that. That's what they're hoping for here in San Marino for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing is I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back to that. I'm gonna go back to it. It's the cost cut. It's the cost cut measures. The difference has been with the Ferrari, and all the other cars we're talking about. They came, well, one, testing in season testing was still no problema. That was number one, and number two, there was no cost cap. Now, again, I say, like, I'm gonna keep on badgering on about it. There's not the field's not going to be brought together while we have a cost cap in place. It's just not. So I'm expecting big things from the Merc from the way they hyped it, but it's not going to be. I doubt it's going to be anything historical.
Yeah.
Because people got to play within a financial budget, and that's the issue. That's the issue.
If I just throw out there this idea, and obviously this is playing on what Christian Horner has said, and we know he will blow things up to look good anyway. So say Mercedes bring this car in, and they find themselves half a second. It's still going to leave them about half a second off Red Bull, but in a better position to challenge. If they do that, and then this wind tunnel effect for Red Bull does make a difference, I don't think it will, but does, and Mercedes can, because remember, Mercedes were third in the championship last year, so they've got a huge amount of wind tunnel time compared to Ferrari, compared to Red Bull.
Red Bull.
Could we see something just around maybe the summer break? Because we've been told this is pretty much it, which I doubt it for Mercedes. Could they, I predict Mercedes to be Constructors' Championship. I don't think they're going to catch Max. But could that prediction of Constructors' Championship, or challenging for it, suddenly appear because this update and one further down the line just makes them there to compete, and Red Bull kind of lose the plot as such?
The Red Bull have so much of an advantage that this is over. It's like the driver's title is over. The constructor's title is over. We're 5 races in. I'm not doing this whole. I'm not doing this. Checo's challenging. Checo's not challenging shit. Let's be perfectly honest. Checo's not challenging shit. And the Red Bull is on the level of dominance of the W11 and the W7 when the hybrid era came in. W6 or W7?
6, I think. I want to say 6.
It's on that level. Now I'm not downplaying Red Bull's. I'm not downplaying Red Bull's work. Red Bull's work is the same as what the Mercs did when the hybrid era came in, and it's absolutely dominant, rightly. But however, there's always going to be an asterisk because they should have been punished.
Yeah.
A 10% CFD is not anything. They pistol and again is that elusive 20. It happened during that elusive 2021 where guess what? Right, and that's the issue, isn't it? Like everything about it is just
let you know that to anybody watching this before Wajid carries on, we are not paid to keep bringing up 2021. Just want to float that out there.
But listen, we're not. But that, unfortunately, that's what everything comes. That's what it all plays back to. It all plays back to that season. They overspent. They won a world title, which Max did deserve, but not in that fashion.
Yeah.
And then they did not get punished.
Well, just thrown out there, you said the first Mercedes, that was 2014, the W05.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah.
It was a non-dominant car, don't get me wrong, but the average winning margin, which would have been to a non-Mercedes, 23.2 seconds. Be interesting to know what Red Bull one is over last year.
I
Be
think it's
interesting
probably
to
more,
know.
but I think the Red Bulls have. I on the genuine belief the Red Bulls have turned down their engines during the race so they don't look dominant. So people don't get involved about how far ahead they are.
True, could have done, but we'd have to obviously see as we go along.
I just, but what they beat Fernando by what 30 seconds
Which
in
Grand Prix?
Miami.
In Miami, yeah,
Miami.
it was roughly 30 seconds.
Well, I mean, we could do actually. Let's look and let's do the averages now before we move on to the next subject.
Let me just find results. So in Bahrain, they were 38 seconds clear of the next car. Let me get a calculator. Never thought to be pressing calculator on this. So we got 38.637 seconds clear. Should have done this before the podcast show.
I don't mind.
In Saudi Arabia, they're 20 clear. Oh, that doesn't work very well, does it? 20.728 add 38.637. Then we go to Australia, which was a bit of a null and void, but it was 0.7.
Yeah, I'm not including that.
Yeah, but at some point, there will have been a race quite similar to that, where we had a late safety car, and in the averages, it wouldn't have made a huge amount of difference, because we're already a minute ahead of the rest of the field. Azerbaijan, they were ahead of Charles Leclerc by 21.217. And in Miami, they were clear Fernando by 26.305. So that is over 5 Grand Prix?
Yeah, 5 Grand Prix.
So over 5 Grand Prix, they are ahead by 21.5. So it fits in currently on average winning margins of cars on the Mercedes side of things. Since Mercedes dominance came in, because that's what everybody's reflecting, saying it's about, it is now second on the list, just behind the W05, where...
But but I guarantee at this moment that the percentage points.
Oh yeah,
is far. I think their percentage points are like 94%, 93%.
Yeah, but
so
are we saying that? I mean, the other thing we have to take into account here is: are we saying it because Aston Martin, Mercedes, Ferrari have done a worse job than if we go back to 2014? Their rivals were pretty much. At the start of the season, I think I'd say Force India, if I remember rightly back. I think Force India were like the team at the start of the season who really threatened. We'll just have a look at the table now. Like, we obviously have a disqualification for Red Bull, and we know they did a terrible job that year, even though it was a car that could win races. You had Williams with Valtteri Bottas and Felipe Massa. And then you had, third was Jenson Button. Well, we know that McLaren was second and third in Australia. We know that McLaren wasn't quick. Sergio Perez was third in Bahrain. Alonso third in China. So
I think
generally it was a different team each week, wasn't it? There.
Yeah, and also the difference was that the season before, Red Bull and Ferrari were battling for that world title up until Brazil.
Yes.
Yeah, so the Mercs, the rest of the teams had switched their focus to the hybrid era. The Red Bulls and the Ferraris were still massively developing their cars for that title for that title challenge.
Well,
so
if we remember rightly, Mercedes were developing from
2013, I think. No,
13
12 wasn't
was
it?
when Lewis come in. I think they're developing from 2011 late 2011 with a hybrid engine because they knew it was coming in, and that's why Schumacher's last season and Rosberg. I think Rosberg got the win, didn't he, in China?
He won in China, and Michael stuck it on pole in Monaco, but it never counted.
But if I remember rightly, I'm just going to double check this because I don't want messages on the bottom going, you got that wrong. I seem to remember the car dropping off towards the end of the year. So we have Michael Schumacher and Nico Rosberg. Yeah, towards the end of the year, Rosberg, the last 6 races, he got 11th, 13th, 15th, and retired from 3 others. Michael only got a 7th before he got in 2 11ths, a 13th, 22nd in India, which must have been sort of like near the end of the race or something, and 16 in, it was near the end of the race for Michael retiring there, and 16th in the USA. So, you know, we're looking at a team that would go in second half of this season, doesn't matter. Yes, things didn't go their way and the car was still there, it was still quick enough. You know, I mean, if I take India, for example, in qualifying, Schumacher was 14th, Rosberg was 10th. About where they were all season. But Mercedes were already going, stuff 2012, stuff 2013. This is about getting a car concept that can put that hybrid engine in 2014 and will be away and gone. And that's what they're always looking at. Ever since their return, that new engine change was always their target.
Exactly. So, which is why, going back to it, Red Bull's overspend, them bringing in the amount of upgrades they did in 2021 and not getting punished adequately enough, right, has led to this situation. Let's be abundantly clear here. Whether it's, you know, the people, like a lot of people online want to defend the FIA and stuff and things like that. The governing body are the ones that implement the rules for this sport, right? So for all you FIA lover fanboys out there, Red Bull should have been punished. Ross Brawn shouldn't have been there like a total dick and said, "Oh, teams will get disqualified. This is gonna change everything. We're gonna have midfielders winning." 2021, it happens every single Formula One cycle. We change regulations. By the time we get to the regulation change, we're at a point where you're genuinely getting close racing and any team could win. Yes, 2021, it was mostly dominated by 2 teams, but you didn't know. The difference is that on a given day, the McLarens could challenge, the Alpines could challenge, the Pink Panther could have been there or thereabouts. So this all stems from unfortunately stems from Abu Dhabi 21. Red Bull did not follow the rules, which has now led to the position we are in. And unless we get rid of the cost cap, I know, like, obviously you and I have differed on this a lot, but unless we get rid of the cost cap, nothing's going to change in this sport. I don't pine for the likes of Volkswagen and Audi. I don't give a shit about pandering to massive car manufacturers because we want 55 million rules and, you know, we want every team to only spend £10 and then we'll come in. I don't give a shit. I don't care how old and, like, you know, how old and angry. I don't care. I sound like an angry old man. Bring back the V8s. Bring back the V10s. I don't give a shit about turbo hybrid. I don't care. Formula One's talking about net neutral. We're flying from Baku to Miami. We're flying to America 3 different times for no reason. It's bullshit. We're net neutral something. Like, just, I want good racing. I want fair racing. And unfortunately, this Merc update is not going to do what it could do because of the cost cap, and this is where we are. And that's why I'm doing this podcast because I enjoy the podcast, but I've written off the titles.
Yeah, it's going to be. It's going to be. Well, let's see. Let's see what comes out in Imola, because Imola's going to be an interesting one in terms of the update, because we don't know what anybody else is going to bring. We've heard Ferrari might have a bit of an update as well, obviously because they only have to ship it down the road. You know, they could bring it Friday night if they need to, and it could come on a pedal bike and it'll still make it for the Grand Prix. Maybe send it with a pizza delivery. That'd be a good one. But anyway, in terms of Mercedes update, let's have your honest opinion. How close, say the Mercedes are about a second back at the moment, how close do you think an update, this is obviously going off the idea that Red Bull don't bring anything, which they could, how much is this update going to get them near to the Bulls? Is it going to just put them into sort of a clear third place?
I think it puts them into a clear second place. Not third. I think it puts them into a clear second place. But I still think they're about half to 3/4 of a second off the Bulls.
Well, personally for me, I would say we won't see what we want until Spain, because obviously Spain is quite a good test circuit. Imola's isn't too bad, but then we have Monaco, and then we have Spain. I think it's a full is it a full triple header all the way through?
Yeah, it's back to back to back.
So it's all going to be fresh in Mercedes' minds as they go through, and it's three kind of different circuits. So you got Imola, which is a bit tight and twisty. Then you got Monaco, which we know is just high downforce. Let's see if it works. Mercedes didn't go too badly there, I don't think, last season. And then
Lewis was awful. George was good.
Yeah, and then we go to Spain, where we saw George Russell holding off. Well, I think he was almost in a position to win the Grand Prix at one point if things had run his way. Obviously, Red Bull had other ideas, but that was after Max went off because of a wind, I think, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, he went straight on, and that last year was the race where Bull said to Checo move to the side, let Max through, and then he didn't reciprocate, I think.
Yeah, that was it, and Sergio suddenly ended up on a free stopper when he was planning to do a 2. But Max had made his way through, so it was kind of null and void for him not to pit and try and get fastest lap. But it is a situation where they may bolt it on and it works this weekend, then it doesn't work in Monaco, then it works in Spain and things like that, because they've got to understand what's under them, and that is part of what they've got to do this weekend. Start understanding. I think you'll see the Mercedes at the end of the pit lane straight away. Let's get out there, high-vis paint flying everywhere, and just try and understand that car. I don't think we can put anything past that.
Where do you just finally probably more, where do you see the Merc update coming? Where do you think this update put, if you rule out Imola and go to Catalonia, where do you see them by where do you see them by the Spanish Grand Prix?
I see them at Spanish Grand Prix after last season's promise there. I see them challenging for a win at Spain. I'm not saying that's going to be every Grand Prix, because we've already seen in Australia they challenged really well and then fell apart at the next race. So it's a bit hit and miss. But I do think by Spain, as Wajid types this down to make sure that when we get to the Spain review, he can go, nah.
Yeah, I'm just typing it so you've got it ready for a short, my friend.
Yeah, I personally think Mercedes will try and understand the car this weekend. Monaco's a write-off because it's just Monaco. Get to Spain, really good test circuit. Maybe they could get to Spain early and do a filming day. I don't know if that's technically allowed that close to a Grand Prix, but
do they still have a filming day available to them?
I don't think they did one at the start of the season. I don't think they did one as a shakedown.
I mean, if they do, then fair enough.
I seem to remember them just turning up in Bahrain with it. I don't seem to remember a shakedown session used as a filming day, or filming day used as a shakedown session. But, you know, who knows? A lot of teams do it on the quiet in different ways, so we will see.
We will see indeed. That's a fairly bold statement, mate. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, well, we'll go with it.